What's the first thing that you do when you get a blocked request in Python? Is it reaching for a headless browser like Playwright or Selenium? Well, in this video I want to explain to you why you may not need to do that, and I think it's a trap that a lot of people fall into. We're going to have a look at one of the ways that the anti-bot companies can block your requests and find out, where they've come from, what they've been sent by very, very easily, and we'll cover a very simple way of overcoming it. And I think this is something that you should try first, or even just use from the start, and I'll show you a Python package as well, a new one that's come out which I think looks really interesting to try. So of course I'm talking about TLS fingerprinting. Now, the TLS is like the handshake between the request that you make to the server and a little bit of data is transferred, but it's that little bit of data that can be fingerprinted and profiled. Now, the TLS fingerprint from a modern browser looks very, very different to the fingerprint from something like Python requests. And it's that fingerprint that it makes very, very easy for the companies to spot and block you, regardless of your headers or anything like that. It's a dead giveaway. So what we want to do is we want to be able to mimic those browser TLS fingerprints, but use it from within a standard HTTP client. So the one that I'm going to show you today is called Rnet, and the reason why I'm quite excited and interested in this to give it a go is not only is it written in Rust, which I think is quite interesting given that there's a lot of Python Rust stuff out there, but it's also written by the guy who made Hyper, which is a very popular HTTP library for Rust. So I've covered TLS fingerprinting in detail a little bit more on my channel already, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but what I want to do with this is to show you how this can get you past certain things, and we'll build up a async extraction class using Rnet that we can just drop into any of our code, and we can then access the actual good TLS fingerprints, and we're going to utilize proxies as well. So here's the example, and I can run this on my machine here, Python test, and we can have a look at all of the information that comes back. There's a few key points. The Akamai fingerprint is something you only get with a good HTTP2 fingerprint, otherwise that will be blank. All sorts of other information, and there'll be cipher codes, algorithms, all this sort of stuff. You could look through this and you could make the same request with Python requests and compare the two, or you can do some reading up on it if you want to. The bits that I looked in the most were the ciphers, really, because they kind of make up the bulk of the fingerprint. What we'll do now is we'll have a look at it in a bit more of a practical use case. So what I've got here is just a request to essentially this website's API that the backend calls to the front end called rather to get the data from the back end, and this is just a bit of product information. So if I was to go ahead and remove the impersonate part here, and what we'll do is we'll save this, and if we run this, we get some errors here, like we're expecting something, it's not working, we're getting a decode request. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this impersonate back in, and then we're going to run it again, and we have the information. This is a very, very simple way of getting around one of the basic entry-level anti-bot protection. And I think a lot of people, especially that don't know about this TLS fingerprint, will fall into that trap of thinking that they need to use a browser to do this sort of thing. Now, obviously, in some cases, you do need to use a browser, and I'd highly recommend you use a stealth browser. I'm going to have a video coming out about that on my channel very, very shortly with the best open source one at the moment, I think, anyway. So let's go ahead and subscribe for that if you want to see that video. It should come out in a week or so. So how can we actually utilize this in more of a project example? Well, what I want to show you is an extractor class that I've written that utilizes the asynchronous and the impersonate function, the impersonate features of Rnet, along with the proxy and also a blocking version, which is the sync version should you want to use that. So what we're going to do initially is start up our class with our init, and I'm basically getting the proxy here from my environment variable. However you want to handle your proxy string, that's up to you. I pull mine from my environments, and then I just have a if I don't find the proxy, because I always scrape behind the proxy. I don't want to scrape anything if I don't find it. Then I'm going to create the client session here. So this is basically, I'll make this a bit bigger so it's a bit easier to see maybe. So this is just, having our client session created, and then I'm going to update it with a few things. The first one is the very important part, which is the impersonate. And it's here where you choose which sort of browser you want to mimic, and that will put in the right fingerprint, including, the the correct user agent that matches, etc., etc. I've been using the Firefox one. I just feel like maybe Firefox is less likely to be blocked, but that could just be all in my head. So, use whichever one you think is the best for you, but definitely use the latest version that's available, in my opinion. Then I'm going to add in my proxies, and so I have a logging file separate that I've imported. That's by the by at the moment, really. We're not focusing on that too much. So I'm just going to log that my session was created. Then I'm going to create my blocking client, which again is the synchronous version. That's so if you wanted to make non-async requests, you could do that there. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the update here. There was probably a neater way of doing this, but I've made it this way, so we can just work with that. Now I have the retry decorator on top of my async fetch function using Tenacity. So the retry is coming from Tenacity, and the async function is within my class using obviously Rnet. So I'm going to use my logger to just show which URL we are requesting. Then we create our response to get that URL using our session. Now, obviously, because we've created our session up here and we've updated it, when we utilize it from instantiating this class, we have the impersonate and our proxies in there already, ready to go. Then I'm just going to return the response.json. With Rnet, you can't return the response directly. It's not unawaitable. So I'm going to return the JSON from that. I know I'm expecting JSON data, so that's absolutely fine. The next thing I'm going to do is create a fetch all class, because I want to be able to utilize the async. I want to be able to give it a load of URLs and just send it out to get them asynchronously, utilizing again the impersonate. So I'm basically creating some tasks with the URL list, and then getting the results for those with async.io gather and await, and then I'm going to zip those together so I have the URL together with the results, so I know which came from which one. Then we're going to add in the blocking fetch, which is the synchronous one. Same kind of thing, really. Nothing exciting there. So let's go ahead and use this. So I'm going to do my async def main, and I'm going to add in some URLs. These are from the same example, but they are different products. And then we're going to go ahead and create an instance of our extractor class. And then we're going to say, our data is going to be equal to our extractor fetch all on these URLs. So of course I'm doing this within the same file, but you could easily create your extractor, save it somewhere in a different file, and then just import it into your main or whatever, add it into your project as you go. Some logging, and then I'm going to do some sync stuff as well. And then I'm going to run everything with async.io.main, async.io run my main function. So I'm going to remove the sync stuff for the moment, and we're just going to log out what we get from our extractor class. So we've got 4 URLs. So let's clear this up and let's run our extractor. We can see that our logging is working, and pretty much instantly we got 4 responses back from that information from each of those pages, and you can see that there. So what I really wanted to focus on in this was showing you guys that you don't always need to go to a browser. That should kind of be your last resort, although it is very much needed. But again, stealth browser, don't go trying to use just standard Playwright or Selenium. You're probably going to have a bad time. But then how we can actually utilize, by building up an extractor class, we can utilize the asynchronous functionality and make our lives very, very easy to make chunks of requests like this. Now this could be anything, any URLs that you've pulled. Maybe you go page by page synchronously, and then you pull all the product URLs from that page and do them asynchronously. You can absolutely do that here, because we've got the blocking fetch, so this could be your main way of going through things, and then doing this for the product pages. And by creating a class like this, we can now go ahead and we probably want to remove this from our extractor class file, but we could then create something, another class that does a transform on the data, and then another one that does something else, and we can pass the data in between there.